Welcome to WikiPodcast.
And welcome back to our philosophy series.
We're digging into existentialism and modern thought again. This is episode 3.
And today, Jean-Paul Sartre is up, a thinker who, well, really shakes things up.
Yeah, it's specifically his whole concept of human freedom. It's a lot.
Our main source, as usual, is Sartre's Wikipedia page. It's pretty comprehensive, gives a good overview of his life, his ideas.
And why he still matters, right?
Exactly.
So our mission today, our goal, is to really get to grips with that kind of paradoxical statement he made. Humans are condemned to be free.
Sounds weird, doesn't it? Condemned to freedom.
It does. So we want to unpack what that actually means for you listening. We'll break down his arguments.
Hopefully spark an aha moment, maybe.
Yeah, maybe change how you see your own existence just a little. Okay, let's dive in.
Yeah.
Jean-Paul Sartre.
Born in Paris, 1905. Passed away in 1980.
Saw some incredible changes in the world during his lifetime.
He really did. And he wasn't just a philosopher tucked away somewhere. He was a playwright.
Novels too, right?
Novels, political activist, literary critic. He wore a lot of hats. Very engaged with his times.
And definitely not a minor figure. Wikipedia calls him central to 20th century French philosophy.
Key in existentialism, phenomenology too.
And his influence apparently stretches into sociology, critical theory, even post-colonial theory, and literary studies.
Oh yeah, his reach was broad. His ideas are still debated, still influential across many fields.
Really shows.
Yeah.
And one thing that always stands out is him refusing the Nobel Prize in Literature in '64.
Yeah, that was a big statement.
What was behind that? Why turn down, the Nobel?
Well, according to the wiki page, he just consistently turned down official honors.
Really?
Yeah. He said a writer shouldn't let themselves become an institution. He wanted to maintain his independence.
Wow. So it wasn't just about the prize money or the fame?
No, it was about the principle, not wanting to be defined or co-opted by external validation. It really fits with his whole philosophy, actually.
It definitely does. That sense of freedom.
Yeah.
And it seems like he questioned norms in his personal life, too, like his famous open relationship with Simone de Beauvoir.
Indeed. A major intellectual figure herself, of course. Their partnership was, well, unconventional for the time.
Challenging those bourgeois values.
Both in how they lived and definitely in their philosophical work. That questioning of conformity, it runs deep.
And Wikipedia mentions this core conflict in his early work, the clash between fitting in, what he called bad faith, and living authentically, especially in that huge book, Being and Nothingness. Sounds intense.
It is intense. A foundational text, but definitely challenging. The core idea is that tension between really owning your choices, your freedom.
And trying to wriggle out of it.
Exactly. Engaging in self-deception to avoid the weight of that freedom. Though, for a more accessible start, humanism is a good bet. It started as a lecture.
Right. Good tip. So where did these ideas start brewing? Who influenced him early on?
The sources point to Henri Bergson. His work, Time and Free Will, particularly on consciousness and how we experience time.
Okay.
And then later at the École Normale Supérieure, the ENS.
Ah, the famous ENS.
Right. His master's thesis was on the image in psychology.
And that's where he met Raymond Aron.
Yep. Lifelong friends, though sometimes complicated friends. And Alexander Kojève's seminars there were huge.
What was so special about Kojève?
His interpretation of Hegel's phenomenology of spirit. It really shaped a generation, including Sartre. Ideas about history, self-consciousness, the concept of the other.
Sounds like heavy stuff. But the page also says Sartre was a bit of a prankster at ENS.
Yeah. There are stories. An anti-militarist cartoon, apparently a media hoax involving Charles Lindbergh.
No way.
Seems he had a rebellious streak even then, questioning authority, seeing the absurdity in things.
That fits. And before the war, he was teaching.
Yes, at various lycées. Gave him time to develop his thinking, and during that time, he encountered some key influences.
Like who?
Louis-Ferdinand Céline's novel Voyage au bout de la nuit. Its sort of bleak outlook might have resonated.
Okay.
And crucially, Edmund Husserl and phenomenology.
Right, phenomenology. That sounds important, but complex.
It is, but simply put, it's the study of conscious experience from the inside, from the first-person view. Husserl's idea of intentionality, that consciousness is always about something, was vital for Sartre.
Got it.
He also read Levinas on Husserl and got deep into Hegel again, thanks to that neo-Hegelian revival Kojève was part of. So a real mix feeding into his thought.
Okay, so with all that background, let's finally tackle it. Condemned to be free. It still sounds like such an oxymoron.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But Sartre isn't using condemned like a judge's sentence.
No.
No, it's more like a fundamental condition. We didn't ask to be born, to be conscious, but here we are. And once we're here, freedom isn't optional.
You can't escape it.
Exactly. It's the very fabric of our being. We didn't choose to be free. It's just how things are for humans.
So the condemnation part is that we don't get a user manual.
Yeah.
No preset purpose.
Precisely that. There's no divine plan, no fixed human nature telling us who to be or what to do. We just exist.
And
then we have to invent ourselves. We create who we are, our essence, through every single choice we make, every action we take.
So we're constantly defining ourselves.
Constantly. And we're totally responsible for it. As Sartre said, there's a necessity for freedom which can never be given up. It's a burden, in a way.
Because you can't blame it on anything else. You can't say, oh, that's just how I am.
Yoop. No excuses. Which leads straight into his most famous phrase.
Existence precedes essence. Heard it a million times, but what does it really mean?
Okay, so Sartre used the example of a paper cutter. Or any manufactured object, really.
Right.
Before that paper cutter exists, someone designs it. They have a plan, a concept, a purpose for its essence.
The blueprint comes first.
Exactly. The essence precedes the existence. But for humans, Sartre says there's no divine artisan, no blueprint.
No creator with a plan.
Right. So we just are. We exist first. And only then, through living, through choosing, do we define what it means to be human for ourselves. We create our own essence.
So unlike the paper cutter, we show up blank and we write our own job description as we go along.
That's a good way to put it. And the implication is massive. You can't fall back on human nature to excuse your actions.
They're left alone without excuse.
That's the phrase. Total responsibility. Your past influences you, sure, but it doesn't determine you. You can always choose differently now.
That sounds, yeah, both liberating and absolutely terrifying, which maybe connects to the next idea. Authenticity. Wikipedia says it's earned, not learned.
Yes. Authenticity, for Sartre, is about squarely facing this radical freedom and the anxiety or anguish that comes with it.
Anguish.
The recognition that there's no pre-written meaning, that the weight of creating meaning is all on you. An authentic person accepts this. They own their actions. They know they're the author of their life's meaning.
And what's this about death consciousness helping with authenticity? Seems a bit dark.
It sounds grim, but the idea is that confronting your own death, the fact that you will cease to exist and just become an object for others,
Okay.
it can really sharpen your focus on what actually matters now. It can jolt you out of just drifting along or living for others' approval and push you toward choices that are genuinely yours. Death underlines the preciousness and the weight of the freedom you have while you're alive.
So inauthenticity or bad faith is basically running away from all this.
Exactly, trying to escape the anxiety and the responsibility, lying to yourself, essentially.
Like, how does that look?
Oh, it could be just blindly following the crowd, blaming your circumstances, pretending you don't have choices, defining yourself by your job or social role as if it's fixed. Anything to avoid seeing yourself as the free creator of your own life, looking for that pre-written script.
Makes sense. Now, the page mentions Heidegger, another huge existentialist name, influenced Sartre, but they disagreed later.
Yeah, Heidegger's being in time was definitely important for Sartre early on. But after being in nothingness, Heidegger became quite critical. Heidegger felt that even by flipping it to existence precedes essence, Sartre was still stuck in the old metaphysical way of thinking about being. Heidegger wanted to dig deeper, to question the very meaning of being itself. In a way he felt Sartre didn't. It's subtle, but a key philosophical split.
Okay. And Sartre wasn't without his critics either. Herbert Marcuse, for instance.
Right. Marcuse argued that Sartre took specific anxieties from a particular historical moment, like post-war alienation, and sort of blew them up into universal, timeless features of the human condition.
Making it seem like things couldn't be changed.
Kind of. Marcuse felt that by focusing so much on individual anguish, existentialism might actually distract from analyzing and changing the social conditions causing that anguish. The Wikipedia page also notes critics like Wollheim and Baldwin questioning Sartre's take on Freud's unconscious.
Ah, yes. They said he misunderstood Freud.
Essentially, yeah. They argued Sartre's rejection of the unconscious was based on a flawed reading of how Freud actually described its influence on us. It just shows these are complex ideas with ongoing debates.
Absolutely. And Sartre's own thinking clearly evolved, especially after World War II. He became much more politically engaged, didn't he?
Oh, profoundly. The war was a massive turning point. He went from being a relatively apolitical intellectual to an active participant in the resistance.
He formed a group, Socialisme et Liberté.
He did, though it didn't last long. But the experience of occupation, resistance, collaboration, it fundamentally shaped his moral thinking. He saw the need for active commitment.
He really emphasized the resistance as morality in action, didn't he? And was tough on collaborators.
Extremely. For Sartre, the resistance was freedom in action, a concrete rejection of oppression. Choosing passivity, in his view, was a form of bad faith, a failure of freedom.
And this led him to push for writers to be politically committed after the war.
Yes, very strongly. Through the journal he co-founded, Les Temps Modernes, he argued that intellectuals had a responsibility to engage with the political realities of their time.
He certainly practiced what he preached, taking some controversial stands, like supporting the execution of Robert Brezilach.
That was indeed highly controversial. It reflected the intense post-war climate. Sartre argued that writers who used their words to support collaboration bore real responsibility.
And his politics during the Cold War were complex, too. Sympathy for the Soviet Union initially.
Which later soured, yes, but also strong support for anti-colonial movements. It all connects back to that core theme of freedom.
How so?
He saw Marxism, initially at least, and anti-colonial struggles as movements aimed at human liberation, fighting against oppression on a societal scale. His engagement with Algeria, Vietnam, it was all part of that fight for freedom as he saw it, extending beyond the individual to the collective. A long journey from pure philosophy to intense political action.
So wrapping this up, what's the takeaway for you listening? Sartre's ideas, they really put the spotlight back on us, don't they?
They absolutely do. They challenge you to examine your own life. Are you really living authentically? Are you owning your freedom, creating your meaning?
Or are you maybe falling into that bad faith, making excuses, avoiding the sheer weight of being responsible for who you are?
And what's really provocative is remembering his point that not choosing is still a choice.
Right. Even doing nothing defines you.
Exactly. Passivity is an action, in his view. How does thinking about that change how you see your everyday moments, the times you feel you're just going with the flow?
It leads to such a fundamental question. If we really are condemned to be free, totally responsible with no safety net, what does that mean for ethics, for politics, for the meaning of life itself?
It's a question that doesn't have easy answers, and one that philosophy is still wrestling with. It definitely gives you something to chew on.
Thanks for listening. Write us in the comments your opinion on the episode and what other topics you would like us to talk about. Subscribe to the channel to help us reach more listeners. Thank you and have an amazing day.